Hi, and welcome back to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. I'm your host, Biz Cush, and thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If, excuse me, if you've shared the podcast with friends or family or clients, I appreciate that so much because community is really important, and the word of mouth makes a difference in terms of who sees the podcast, how visible it is, and allowing the visibility allows other highly sensitive women to find it too. Um, yeah. So thank you. Thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here. We have a great guest today. It seems like the recent guests have been all about helping us be with feelings. So, we're going to talk some more about that this week. But before we get to that, I just wanted to share that the membership, the Circle of Sacred Sensitivity membership, is open for registration. We've got an amazingly lovely group of kind, compassionate, funny, caring, open hearted women who are a regular part of our circles. We also have women who drop in for just a one time or occasional drop in. And it's always an amazing energy and vibe, even if the energy is low. Just being together is heartfelt, meaningful. It is the highlight of my month, honestly, our circles. So if that sounds like something you want to experience or you want to come back to, if you've already been a part of it, you can find out how to register for the upcoming circles on my website at elizabethcush.com. And if you've already attended one and you would like to be a part of the monthly membership, which includes meditations, energy practices, I'm adding more and more content to the membership each month. Just reach out. If you've been a part of one of the circles and want to join the monthly membership, just let me know. Reach out through my website and I will send you the link. So today our guest is Dr. Jenn Rapkin, and she is a naturopathic doctor, and her work with clients sounds amazing. Wish I had found a doctor like that when uh, 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 I was in need of some extra help. We're dealing with pain and chronic pain, but anyhow, she's an amazing woman. She is a highly sensitive, deep feeling, what she calls a frequent feeler. And she wrote a really cool book about how to stick with and be with our feelings. So that's what our conversation centers around. So I hope you will stick through to the end where she walks me through a process on how to be with our feelings. So let's jump in. Ooh. Hi, Jenn, and welcome to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So nice to have you on board here. For the listeners who don't know who you are, could you share a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure, absolutely. I am a naturopathic physician and a body worker. And I have recently written a book called The Feeling Muscle. And it is
Mm,
about staying with and outlasting hard, challenging emotions through sitting with those feelings, sitting with the emotional experience in the body.
yeah, yeah. And I'm guessing since you wrote this book, and I've not read it cover to cover, but dove in deep enough to know that this comes from personal experience, this learning how to hone your feeling muscle, I guess. Right? Am I right?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So just to tell you a little bit about sort of where I came from, I was born obviously a frequent feeler. and was managing a lot of strong emotions as a young person. And my parents, while they were incredibly loving and well-intentioned, they had a philosophy about not, they didn't believe that young people should be exposed to hard things, hard
Mm,
topics, hard conversations. And as a result, they didn't model for me, hard stuff, having hard conversations, talking about difficult emotions. And as a result, I ended up becoming quite an expert at numbing and avoiding my feelings because I didn't have a roadmap of how to sit with them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say my childhood similarly, and not so much that like avoiding hard things, but big emotions were not really welcomed or uh, held. So, yeah,
Yeah.
again, learning how to figure out how to manage it on my own as a kid, where there really wasn't a roadmap because my parents kind of just showed up the same every day and really didn't fight in front of us, any of that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
didn't really know how to manage conflict. Still don't. I'll have to admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, what? So you're a naturopathic doctor, but I don't think that's where you started your career. Is that right?
That's right. So I was a dancer for many, many years. I had a medical condition in my mid-20s that forced me to give up dancing. And at the time, I was working with a acupuncturist to help me. Um, as you can imagine, being a dancer, I wasn't living the healthiest life, right? And so
Mm,
this acupuncturist, who actually might as well have been a naturopath in the way that she was practicing, treating me with nutritional guidance and Western and traditional Chinese herbs and homeopathy and acupuncture. Um, she changed my life, really. Like
mm,
she showed me a whole new direction to go. And I said, I want to do this. I want to do
mm,
this. And so that's how I ended up going to a naturopathic medical school.
hmm
And that sort of intertwined with being a big feeler. I did a lot of soul searching in my 30s, a lot of mindfulness, meditation, retreats. And I just started and body work, and I just started incorporating the things that were helping me with into my private practice with other folks. And it was just sort of a natural progression for me to become more and more, not only more and more interested, but my practice became specialized in mind body medicine and body work.
yeah, yeah. Well, you talk a lot in the book about like how we're so sort of programmed to think things through versus feel them. And I know I have a lot of analyzing parts, a lot of thinking parts, a lot of parts that want to sort of know. Um, So, for clients who may come to you with like wanting to sort of better understand everything, to get them into their bodies, what are some of the ways you help clients really listen to what's happening inside?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question. And usually the first, well, let me just respond a little bit about the being in my head or folks living in their head a little bit more than their bodies. And then I'll get to that other question because it's
Sure,
super important.
sure.
But we tend to, and I know I do, we tend to go up into our minds. And many of us have a space in our mind that is a stressed out space, sort of fearful space. I know I was very desperate to sort of find a part of myself that wasn't that mental soundtrack.
Mm,
And that is, I think, combined with being a dancer, is what led me to look to the body instead of my mind for insight. I feel like we're trained or programmed to go up into our heads for insight and wisdom.
Yeah.
And the body has an enormous amount of insight and wisdom to offer. And I think for me, I was sort of forced because my mind was so complicated and so crowded and just so busy
Yeah.
that I went into the body for
Insight
guidance,
and wisdom.
insight.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
so when you ask me the question about what I do, the first thing I do with folks is I'll put them in a body work table and we'll start to do a body scan, which is just simply feeling your body from head to toe and tensing certain areas and relaxing them. And that really just offers somebody an introduction to go inside and to go inward.
Mm,
And when I incorporate touch next, that is a really cool thing because for folks, some folks are really ripe for feeling their inner experience and others struggle with it. And when you use touch in obviously in a respectful, safe, therapeutic way, you can ask somebody first, can you feel my hands? And
mm,
that's sometimes a safer place to start. You can feel something on top of you. Okay, so I feel your hands on top of me, and then I'll invite them to feel themselves under my hands.
mm.
And then that is just a place of deeper work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine potentially, well, being a trauma survivor, for some trauma survivors, touch might be harder for them to tolerate or even consent to. And how do you
Yeah.
manage that for someone who's really, you know, uh, protective of their body, either being touched or feeling? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a super important question. And I want to be very thoughtful in the way that I answer it. I work with patients of sort of all sorts of different struggles and challenges. I do work with patients that have experienced trauma. Those patients I work with in conjunction with a therapist or a
Yeah.
psychologist. I have
Yeah.
a network of folks who refer to me. And
Mm,
so when an individual has a complex background, I work in conjunction with a mental health practitioner. But
yeah.
even in addition to that, I just want to say that when we've experienced abuse and trauma and violations involving touch, it is so important for us to realize that we cope and manage and get through times in our lives the best that we can. And whatever we have in our body and we hold in our body, I really, I communicate with clients and patients that we honor those holdings in the body
Mm,
with great reverence. And I don't go in willy-nilly and try to like pull stuff out of people. That
yeah.
is not that is not my approach at all. My
Yeah.
approach is very slow and systematic, and is really about just sitting with the present moment, whatever that might be,
Hmm.
and allowing somebody to begin to get comfortable with their present moment. So someone might come in anxious, stressed out, frustrated.
Yeah.
That's where we work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long-winded answer to your
No, no,
question,
no,
but
but it was it for whatever reason it satisfied a part of me that like that
hmm.
the or reassured or whatever that like there is consent in terms of how you're working with a client and that they are meeting you where they are along with the help of whatever supports they have outside the work you guys are doing, which is really
Absolutely.
important. Yeah,
Yeah.
really important. Yeah. And um for you, what practices, I know, you were a dancer, so I'm guessing movement, but too, like
Mhm.
what practices have really helped you sort of become more in touch and trusting of your body's wisdom?
Yeah. Well, I would say that so when I was a dancer for many, many, many years, dance was something, and I
Mm.
think people of any sort of, you know, movement, whether they're an athlete, or a dancer, or some, you know, moving your body in another way, you can realize and understand the idea of when like movement is put on top of you. So I danced for many years where movement was on top of me. I would like wear it like a piece of
Mm.
clothing, right?
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
I was introduced to modern dance and other body-centered therapies in college. And I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but that was really profound for me because movement stopped being something that I put on top of myself, and it was something that was generated from within. And I experienced myself in a much deeper level. So
Yeah,
for me, you know, the practices that are the most powerful and the most grounding for me are mindfulness practices that encourage me to stay partially present with myself and my body while while I'm doing an activity, or while I'm washing the dishes or brushing my teeth or talking with you, writing an email. I'm always reminding myself, can I feel my feet? Can I feel my jaw, my shoulders, my breath? Am I holding my breath?
mm,
I'm a big breath holder from years of sort of pushing away feeling.
me
Yeah.
too, me too.
And so just that sounds like a simple exercise. It's not. It's challenging. But
Yeah,
for me, it's like coming to a safe place. It's a grounding exercise because I'm acknowledging that I'm here
yeah,
in this moment, and I can still be here in a moment where I'm doing other things.
yeah, yeah. Where other stuff is happening, or
Yeah.
yeah, you are doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've definitely found mindfulness meditation to be tools that help support me daily, and it's
Mhm.
really, as you said, breath holding is something I think a lot of us do that we don't necessarily recognize that we're holding our breath until we or just start breathing again and just start realizing, oh, no wonder I was feeling so trapped or so fearful or whatever it might be. It's because I'm not breathing properly.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's super interesting. I don't want to get too technical, but the parasympathetic nervous system which is the part of our nervous system that enhances relaxation, right? And
Yeah.
groundedness and calming. And so our
Mm.
parasympathetic nervous system is engaged when we breathe, and when our exhale in particular is um, is soft, and there's ease in that exhale, and it can maybe even be a little elongated a bit.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
a really kind of cool way to bring some calming energy into your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine I can just feel your calm energy through our conversation here. Like I
Mhm.
am feeling very calm and relaxed myself, which I
Mhm.
can be anyway, but I can feel your calming energy with me. So I would imagine that's really important in your work as well for you to be able, and my work too, to be that presence when maybe clients struggle to feel that sense of calm, maybe even
Yeah,
in relationships.
absolutely. I think when somebody comes in to my office, one expectation, I like to sort of throw agendas and expectation out the window. And what I mean by that is sometimes people have an idea of mindfulness and meditation and body work, and they think that it's this place that they're going to, or they should reach a sense of calm and a place of zen, and come to some epiphany or revelation. And I really like to throw that out the window. Not that I validate that, and it's an amazing place to get to a place of peace and calm and centeredness, but I
Hmm.
also want people to realize that present moment work is also about sort of welcoming in, even if you don't like it, or sitting with moments that are hard or uncomfortable or anxious. And so if
Yeah.
somebody comes in a place of anxiety or a place of struggle, I really encourage them to get on the table. And while our sort of longer term goal might be to get to a place of relaxation, where we begin is to be and feel and experience and maybe even vocalize or verbalize, give it a
Mm.
vocabulary, what they're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just honoring whatever the feeling is in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so much of, and I know a portion of your book addresses this too. I think so much of our thinking experience can be that critical mind, that critical part of us that is telling us we should or shouldn't be feeling a certain way. Um, and I'm a huge proponent of self-compassion and meeting ourselves where we are. But I'm guessing that's a part of the work that you do with your clients as well.
It is. And I talk about with my clients and my students, because I do also teach,
Mm,
um, to begin to begin to embrace and to begin to get to know what I call the neutral observer,
mm,
the birth of the neutral observer. And what that is it's sort of a foil for our critical self, right? And it's the part of us that can look through a lens, like you said, of compassion and kindness and also neutrality, so that we
mm,
can observe our emotions and we can observe our thoughts and we observe our feelings and just experiencing that without the critical judgment, agendas, expectations, to just observe it. And I like to even go a little bit further to observe it without any kind of a narrative, right? Because
mm,
one of our one of our tendencies is to attach words and meanings and narratives to our experiences. And I'm not judging that at all. Like that's super important, right? For
mm,
self-awareness. But we also don't always have to do that. And we can begin to observe without attaching meaning and narratives. And really that's the birth of like the present moment in some ways, right? Because it's just we're we're experiencing and observing ourselves without commentary.
mm. Could you give an example for somebody who's sort of struggling with the more theoretical side of this, I guess, is
Yeah, yeah.
like what, like for someone attaching meaning to a feeling or meaning to an experience, like,
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
No, it's a great question. Yeah. So let's
yeah,
just say that I am experiencing frustration, right? Um, my narrative for frustration in that moment might be that my husband isn't listening to me and he won't stop his work to hear what I'm saying.
mm,
It's driving me crazy.
yeah,
And I could stay in that frustration narrative for hours. If I'm being completely honest, I could stay in that for a long. And what I would might try to do of that is to go inside and say my frustration, and it's different for everybody, but my frustration is what I call hard bubbles. I feel them. Hard bubbles under my sternum. And they just sit there and they kind of bump into each other and they bump into my body and they push
mm,
outward. And I just stay with that without trying to judge and say that this is a bad or negative experience. I just stay with those hard bubbles and I
mm,
try to detach from the narrative because the narrative cycles for me, the narrative cycles and I have a hard time moving on. But if I can just let that narrative slip away and
mm,
stay with my frustration with a very kind of neutral but also compassionate and empathetic space,
Yeah.
It just brings me to a different place. I think, and I don't want to sound, I never want to sound like I'm judging or, shaking my finger at somebody. You should spend more time in your body and not in your head. It's not what I actually have an enormous amount of compassion and empathy for the predicament that we find ourselves in sort of this world where we have constant distractions at our fingertips with our phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all sorts of distractions and things that numb us.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have an enormous amount of compassion for that. So I don't want to come off as judgy, but I do think that if we can begin to be more comfortable with ourselves and even with our hard stuff, right?
Mm.
So that we can welcome in the good feelings, we can welcome in some of the yucky feelings, and we're less likely to grab that distraction if we trust that we can sit through something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a practice I've been working on recently is like really noticing when I do go to pick up my phone, right? To either get on social media or I play Scrabble, right?
Hmm.
Play a game, like it's
Sure.
okay. Yeah, all right. Is there something happening inside that I'd rather not feel? And it's an interesting, like to me, it's like an experiment. Okay, well, what if I didn't? Like, what would that feel like if I just let
Yeah.
it be and could just be here? Um, but it is so tempting and easy to grab and not think or to not feel, right?
I love that. I love what you just shared, and I love the word experiment that you
Mm,
used because
yeah,
it is. Sometimes we're going to distract ourselves. It's no big deal. And sometimes distraction's a good thing. We're
yeah.
overwhelmed and we need to get out of our heads and,
Hmm.
but sometimes, maybe every once in a while, if we have kind awareness, we could just say, okay, I know I'm grabbing this phone because I don't want to feel this. Let me just put the phone down and see if for a couple minutes I can just sit with this.
Yeah,
And what does it
yeah,
feel like in my body? The body piece of this is like for me, I was going through an experience with someone very close to me who I have OCD, and this person very close to me had OCD. And I was sitting in on his appointment, and his doctor was explaining that in order to, you know, beat, so to speak, his OCD, he had to sit with the discomfort of
yeah,
not engaging in the rituals. And I saw the confusion in his mind of like what it felt abstract to me. I could see it felt abstract and sort of difficult to comprehend.
yeah,
And it was in that moment, I was already writing the book, but it was in that moment that I was like, if I could help even just in the tiniest way to make the idea of sitting with discomfort a little bit more tangible and a little bit more accessible for people by
mm,
giving them the permission to feel what that discomfort feels like in your body. And that's like a tangible thing that somebody can actually sit with. So my hard bubbles behind my sternum, that actually gives me that's a tangible feeling that I can
yeah.
sit with and let it ride and eventually dissipate. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does. It
yeah.
does. I wonder, I know you've got some exercises in the book to help the readers sort of tap
Mhm.
into what's happening feeling wise. Would you be open to sort of leading me in an exercise here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shall we try it?
Yeah, let's.
Okay. Okay. So let's start with just acknowledging that this conversation that we're having may or may not have brought up some feelings inside. And I would invite you to just go inside of yourself, whatever that means. And I see you closing your eyes. That's fantastic.
Mm,
You can or cannot, yes, close your eyes and just see if you can go within yourself There are two areas in the body that do a lot of feeling. One of them is the chest. The heart and the lungs do a lot of feeling, and your gut.
Mm,
So just check in with your heart area and your gut, and
definitely
just
feeling, yeah,
you're
feeling my
feeling in
chest.
your chest. So
Yeah.
now that you, Elizabeth, have identified something, something brewing, just see if you can, almost as if you are shaking its hand. See if you can shake the hand of the feeling. And as you shake the hand of the feeling, whatever that means to you, there's no right or wrong. See if you can just welcome that feeling in and welcome it to stay for a few minutes. And as you welcome in that feeling, maybe enlist your neutral observer and let go of any ideas or expectations of that feeling. Let go of any need to define that feeling or categorize it as good or bad, positive or negative. See if you can just throw that out the window and just stay with kind compassion, welcoming that feeling to stay a while.
Yeah. Definitely
Yeah.
noticed just that it softened, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as
Mm-hmm.
intense as when we first started the exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's so cool about that is that we begin to notice that by just simply opening and welcoming a feeling,
Hmm.
there's less defensiveness, there's less guardedness, there's a softening.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
softening in the body and the mind.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
definitely noticed, though, there was this part of me that really wanted to define it, that wanted
Mm-hmm.
to have the story. And just as like that was coming up, and you're like, can you just be the observer with kind of, and I was like, oh, can I just let that story go?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that made the difference, which is interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool because I work with the idea of giving the feeling a voice,
Mm,
meaning when I described the bubbles and like giving the feeling of,
mm,
as opposed to giving the feeling like
the
a
story.
a
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was really awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was a little nervous that, that I was offering myself to you, but it was great. I
Yeah.
enjoyed
Yeah.
it. It was
Yeah.
really easy. Um, are there any words of encouragement or insight that you feel like would be important to share with the listeners around being deep feelers?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will share that this summer I did a shaman's journey. And
Mm,
in that, it was a weekend. One of the shamans said something that just like penetrated my core. And I'm paraphrasing when I say it, but it was something along the lines of life is not meant to be comfortable. Or
mm,
maybe he said life is meant to be uncomfortable. It was along those lines. And as a deep feeler, I think there's still a part of me that really hopes that life is about sort of finding joy and happiness and success and sort of tying that up. And I validate that part of myself, yeah, that hopes and wishes that. But I think there's
mhm,
another part of myself that really understands that all of the challenges and difficulties and struggles that I've had in my life have really moved me in a certain direction and has allowed me to be the person that I am. And so I guess what I would say to folks deep, profound feelers is that we are capable of doing hard and impossible things, and we are capable of sitting with hard and impossible feelings. And I think that to me, if I were to leave your audience, your listeners, with anything, is just that we can trust and and believe that we can do hard things and make it through.
Mm, yeah, such a hopeful, um,
Hmm.
yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen, so much for coming on the podcast. Um, it always means a lot to me and my system when I connect with somebody, through this virtual platform, but that I just feel your energy and compassion that just comes through. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for creating this community that you have and that I've just, spoken with. I'm always in awe of people that have created communities, healing communities, and I'm just grateful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And yeah, thanks again for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging out to the end of the podcast. That exercise that Jen walked me through in terms of just being with the part of me that was feeling a lot, as well as holding space with that observer that sort of held the compassion and care without creating a story. That was really powerful. It was really powerful. And if you shared that experience with me while she was doing it, if you also sat with something, I would love to hear how it felt for you, how it landed for you, because yeah, I just always love to know what your experience is. Well, if you want to know more about Jenn Rapkin and her work, you can find all her information, her resources, her book in the show notes. And you can find them at elizabethcush.com or awakenyourwisewoman.com. All the info will be there. You can also find how to be a part of the Circle of Sacred Sensitivity if that is something that interests you. You can find out more about that there on the tab at the top. You'll see Circle of Sacred Sensitivity. You can find out more about the group, find out more about the membership, and when our next circle gathering will be, because you can always just drop into one of the circles. Well, I look forward to hanging out with you next time here on the podcast. I hope that you are able to be with yourself, your feelings, your your soul, your intuition, just to take care of you over the next few weeks until we meet again here. I look forward to connecting with you next time right here on the podcast.